What is the Steelers' plan at quarterback? Big Deke news. Aaron Rodgers is still nowhere to be seen or heard from, and the draft is just a little over 2 weeks away. Does that change things when it comes to the team's draft approach? Now, obviously, the Steelers are going to be looking at quarterback no matter what Rodgers does, and they've already been telling you that this offseason with how they've been handling everything from the top 30 visits, the combine, and also these pro days. They're interested in this year's quarterback class. And even if Rodgers does sign here, he's 41. So the team is going to have to address the future of the position at some point soon. It's just whether it's going to be this year or next year. And we know the pros and cons of each, whether it's drafting a quarterback now versus waiting. So I don't have to go too in-depth on that. You could convince me either side, really, on any given day. I'm pretty much open to anything to get this Steelers franchise on the right track. Whatever it takes to get a franchise quarterback, because at the end of the day, that's what we need. When push comes to shove, we need elite quarterback play. We need a franchise quarterback. So if that involves drafting someone this year and having them wait behind Rodgers and then they get the keys in a year or two, fine. If it involves Rodgers balling out this year and he's around for another year or two, great. If it's Rodgers saying no to us and we decide to go with Mason, and Mason ends up picking up where he left off in 2023 and he has a top 10 quarterback season next year, awesome. If the year goes down the tubes, no matter what combination of quarterbacks are out there, and it's clear we need to draft someone in the top 10 in 2026, okay then. So be it. Whatever the equation is, whatever the formula is, I don't care. I just know we need to get a quarterback, and we know what I mean whenever I say get a quarterback. We need elite quarterback play. We need a franchise quarterback. Whatever it takes to get that within the next 2 years, whatever. I don't care what it is. I don't care what the formula is. I don't care what the equation. It just needs to happen. And we need to be taking chances. We need to be taking shots. We need to be throwing darts at a dartboard to do it. Because if we don't, if we're just average, above average, just, toeing the line, we're toast. And I'm just being honest, because you need elite quarterback play to win big in this league. I've been saying it for years. This is nothing new. It's just that the Steelers find themselves now in this predicament of not really having a quarterback. I mean, we've had Ben for 18 years. Now we tried with Kenny, drafting him in the first round. We see that didn't work out for a multitude of reasons. I'm not getting into that. But then we tried last year with Russ and Fields. Ultimately, that wasn't good enough. I would have been open to giving Fields another chance because of his upside and where he's at in his career and what he showed me last year, but we didn't. I didn't think we could go back to Russ. I think it was clear that he was limited, and going back to Russ was just going to keep you in that average stratosphere, relevancy, good but never good enough. And again, that's not it. That's not how you win big in this league. That's not how you win Super Bowls. Kirk Cousins is Dax, Tua's, Jimmy G, Jared Goff, Derek Carr. We've seen it. We've seen it. I've been saying it. It's cool. They'll win you 10 games. They'll keep you relevant. Maybe on a given year or two, they'll win a division, but then they go up against great defenses, or they go up against more talented quarterbacks, more elite quarterbacks. They can't hold a candle. When the games are on the line, when the games are the brightest in the playoffs, they're going to let you down. And that'll keep your franchise in purgatory, because it's not good enough to win it all, but it's not bad enough to pick high enough in the draft to get an upgrade at the position. You know why the Bengals are set for the next 10 years, 15 years? Joe Burrow. Number 1 overall pick. How did the Bengals get Joe Burrow? They were terrible. How did the Bengals get Jamar Chase? They were terrible. Other quarterbacks. I could go through the list of the top 10 guys. Josh Allen, picked at 7, right? Why were the Bills able to pick Josh Allen at 7? They were bad. Patrick Mahomes was drafted 11th, so Chiefs went out of their way to go get Mahomes. Have him sit behind Alex Smith. They said, Alex Smith, okay, you're keeping us relevant. You're not good enough. We need to upgrade. So even though we don't, by the books, need a quarterback right now, because if we go with Alex Smith for another year, we're going to be relevant. We'll be in the playoffs and all that. Maybe we should get another guy to surround Alex Smith and help him out. Maybe at receiver, maybe at running back, maybe upgrade the defense, right? Maybe that will get us over the hump. No, the Chiefs weren't lying to themselves. They knew Alex Smith wasn't getting it done. Sean McVay with Jared Goff, he wasn't lying to himself anymore. We got to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff, but we saw what happened in that Super Bowl. We need someone with more talent, with more upside. Went out of their way to go get Matt Stafford. Traded draft picks and Jared Goff to get Stafford. And Stafford was the number 1 overall pick. Justin Herbert, 6th overall pick. How did these teams get these guys? They were bad. That's one way to get your franchise set up for the 10, 15 years. And this is across all sports. Let's go to hockey. Pittsburgh Penguins. Why have they been so relevant? Now, not as much over the last 3 years, but over the course of 15, 16 years, Marc-Andre Fleury, Evgeny Malkin, Sidney Crosby. They had the number 1 overall pick, 3, 4 years in a row? So, that's a strategy. That's actually a way to do it. You be bad enough so you can get a guy that's going to set you up for 15, 20 years. It's not the end of the world. Who was the quarterbacks, for the Steelers' 6 Super Bowls? Terry Bradshaw and Big Ben. All-timers, right? Where were they drafted? Terry Bradshaw was the number 1 overall pick. Well, why were the Steelers drafting number 1 overall? They weren't good. How did they get Mean Joe Green? How did they get, Jack Lambert? All those guys. They had good draft picks. Again, the quarterbacks for 6 Super Bowls, Terry Bradshaw, number 1 overall pick. Big Ben for the other 2. He's picked at number 11. Why were the Steelers picking at number 11 that year? They were 6-10 the year prior. When have we ever drafted at 11 since? We haven't. So you see why the Steelers were able to draft those guys that they were bad the season or seasons prior. So having this whole non-losing season streak and stuff, where's it ultimately getting us? If it doesn't involve us finding an elite quarterback or a franchise quarterback, where's it ultimately getting us? Having a losing season might be the exact thing we need to get back to Super Bowl contention. So what are we holding on to by just trying to stay relevant or trying to keep this whole non-losing season streak going? We need to take risks. We need to take chances and get out of this rut, this purgatory we've been in the last 3-4 seasons. And to the Steelers' credit, this offseason, we are trying. We are taking swings. We're taking chances. There has been legit turnover. I think there has legit been a message that's been sent that last year wasn't good enough. We need to make changes. Now, could we accomplish finding our quarterback for the future without having to lose at that level? Sure, and that involves the whole succession plan approach. So say Rodgers signs here, you get a guy to sit behind him, and, with Rodgers, you're going to be relevant. Hopefully, Super Bowl aspirations, if he could return to his form and be vintage Rodgers. So that's like the win-win. That's the ultimate right there is you bring in Rodgers, he returns to Rodgers, and you draft a guy in the first round, maybe at 21, and then they take over for Rodgers whenever he's done. That's the ultimate. That's what you're looking for. So it can't be, you can't get an elite quarterback in the house while you're winning. It just means you take a quarterback maybe a year or two early. You take a quarterback when you don't necessarily need them for the upcoming season, like the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson, like the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts. Drafting Jalen Hurts in the second round with them already having Carson Wentz, a guy that they took, number 2 overall 3-4 years prior. It was that was insane, man. I don't think anyone was really expecting that. Lamar Jackson with the Ravens, when they had Joe Flacco still. Now, Joe Flacco was getting up there in age, but it wasn't. I mean, you see Joe Flacco still playing. It wasn't like Joe Flacco was completely washed or anything at that point. Like, he was still the quarterback for the Ravens and keeping them in the mix and keeping them relevant and making the playoffs. And then the Packers did it with Jordan Love and Rodgers, like 2 times. They did it with Rodgers whenever they drafted Rodgers, when they already had Brett Favre. And then when the Packers had Rodgers and he was getting up there in age, they drafted Jordan Love, maybe a couple years earlier than they felt like they needed to get a quarterback, but just to make sure they have that succession plan in place. They felt like the talent was good enough. They felt like they believed in a guy, and if they could get him in-house, have him wait for a year or two, that they're not gonna be missing a beat once they move on from the quarterback that they already had. And in fact, it maybe could be an upgrade in some instances, like with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson and the Eagles with Jalen Hurts. Like, there's a reason, I think, in the back of these teams' minds that, they're going back to Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes. They're thinking like, okay, yeah, we're winning with what we got, but ultimately, are we going to win a Super Bowl again with Joe Flacco? Like, all right, he struck lightning in a bottle for that crazy ass playoff run in like 2011, 2012. The Joe Flacco experiment, it's not sustainable anymore in terms of trying to win a Super Bowl. Same thing with Alex Smith, Carson Wentz. So, like, yeah, I mean, in this case, with the Steelers, Rodgers is a whole different type of story. You're just hoping he could return to form. You're trying to go off of the whole Brady to Tampa Bay Buccaneers formula, Favre to Vikings formula. You're trying to go off of that, but also have the succession plan in place, which is what Tampa Bay didn't really have with Brady and the Vikings didn't have with Favre. So the Steelers, I mean, yeah, if you could pull it off, go for it. Like, if you get Rodgers and then draft the guy in the first round, we draft the Dart, Shador falls to us, we draft him at 21. One side of me would be a little bit bummed out because we're probably drafting a guy that's not going to be seeing the field for this year, is not going to be making any impact. But then you make the case the quarterback's the most important position, and it's not going to hurt you to invest extra in that, as seen by some of these teams that have done the whole succession plan route. There's a case for not doing it. There's a case for doing it. It's just, I'm at this point, I don't know about you guys. I think maybe I'm just at this point with how everything's been these last 3 or 4 years with the Steelers. I'm just throwing my hands up and just being like, I don't know, man. Just whatever it takes, whatever formula, whatever equation works, whatever gets us that quarterback, I'm going to ultimately be good with. Because there's multiple avenues. There's multiple approaches. I'm just saying, like, the whole non-losing season, trying to hold on to that, just stay relevant. It's not it. It's not good enough. And again, to the Steelers' credit, I think they know that as well. That's why they're taking a swing on Aaron Rodgers. And if they draft the quarterback in the first round this year, I think that says something too, to where they're like, we really got to lock in and try to figure out this quarterback thing, not only for this year, but for the next decade, 15 years. We need to take swings. We need to be throwing darts at a dartboard with this. And if there's a guy that we think has that type of talent, all right, just let's invest in the position. Let's invest in the room. Having an Aaron Rodgers here with a Shador Sanders, a Jackson Dart, whoever it is, I think we got a plan. We actually have something that we're pushing for. There's a vision there. I could get behind that. I could. Is it the smartest thing for 2025? Not necessarily. Is it the worst thing, though, for 2025? I don't think so either, because you saw what happened with the Packers once they drafted Jordan Love. Aaron Rodgers ended up having, I think, like 2 of his best seasons in his career, back-to-back MVPs. Also, the Patriots. When did they draft Jimmy G? Was it like 2014 or 2015? I just know after they drafted Jimmy G, Brady ended up winning like 2 or 3 more Super Bowls. So drafting a quarterback early when you already have a guy in place, obviously not the end of the world. Would not be the end of the world at all. And I think Rodgers in particular, where he's at in his career, 41, I think he has some sort of awareness. I think he even said with the Jets that if he would have been there for 2025, he would have been completely fine with them drafting a quarterback. So I don't see why he wouldn't be cool with the Steelers doing that either, with him not really having any prior attachment to the team either. I think it's just where he's at, where the organization's at. It would make sense. Like, you could definitely sell me on it. It wouldn't be this crazy thing to have Rodgers here and then also draft a guy in the first round, particularly since this is the most important position in the game. And there are signs. You're seeing some stuff out there and signs and hints that the Steelers could take a quarterback early, no matter what Rodgers does. Schefter says that if Sanders falls, that he's not making it past the Steelers, that the team will draft him immediately. The Dart connection has been there since the start of this offseason and continues to be there with some of these pre-draft visits and stuff. Jalen Milroe, this one's interesting, got invited to the actual draft and accepted the invite, which means NFL people have a suspicion that he doesn't last past the first round. And even if he does, he's not going to go any later than early to mid-second, at least based off their calculations. Because even guys that have gone to the draft but have slipped past the first round, they still get drafted in the second round. JPJ, it happened with him. He got drafted first pick in the second round. Will Levis, a couple years ago with the Titans, he got drafted, second or third pick in the second round. Geno Smith, whenever he fell out of the first, got picked mid-second by the Jets. So I think that's a very telling sign, because they don't want to invite you and then you slip out of the first round. Like, they're sending the invite for a reason. They actually have legitimate reason for thinking that you're going to be picked and you're going to be making an appearance on stage. So that could be something. There's been multiple reports connecting the Steelers and Milroe, kind of like same conversation we were having with Dart. So, yeah, I mean, the Steelers are definitely doing their due diligence on quarterbacks in this draft, and rightfully so. I don't think at this point there's just not a wrong answer. There's not a wrong answer to this. It could involve Rodgers signing here and being awesome. It could involve Rodgers signing here, and then we draft a guy in the first round this year, and that's a succession plan. It could involve Rodgers being signed here, and we pass on a quarterback this year, but he sticks around for 2026, and then we draft a guy, and then they're the succession plan. It could involve everything going to shit, and then we draft in the top 10 next year. It could involve Aaron Rodgers not signing here, Mason balls out. Could involve Rodgers not signing here, Mason's the main guy, but we also draft the quarterback in the first. It's a competition, and then who knows how that plays out. So I think I'm open for all of it at this point. I think I'm up for, again, whatever it takes to get an elite quarterback in-house, to get a franchise guy. And the reason I'm open for all those scenarios, I think you could sell me on any of those scenarios working at this point. Now, what percent chances do each of those have of being a success? I think that's a different story, but I see potential in each of those scenarios is what I'm saying. I didn't see potential in just doing the same thing we've been doing and bringing Russ back and going that route. You get what I'm saying? But that's it for today's show. That's all I got. This was just more of, I guess, a rant, or just, I don't know, just going through the process of how the Steelers should be viewing this quarterback situation as we sit here right now, Monday, April 7th, 2025, with, all the information, everything at play right now. This is how the Steelers should be looking at this thing. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Hope you enjoyed. Stay chilling. Peace.